Imagine waking up one morning and instead of opening your laptop to check emails, you have to grab a long stick and walk door to door waking people up by hand. Or worse, instead of sitting in an air-conditioned office meeting, your job is to taste test every single plate of food because someone's afraid it might be poisoned. We often talk about human evolution through technology or architecture, but there's another side of history that people rarely think about: the evolution of survival itself, the endless struggle to make a living. There were jobs that once supported thousands of people, jobs that held entire societies together. But if you drop them into the modern world today, they'd feel more like something out of a bizarre science fiction movie. Have you ever wondered, if you were born in a different century, just how strange your resume would look? To better understand that chaotic world and sometimes unbelievably absurd world, let's flip back through the pages of history and come face to face with 9 jobs that I guarantee you will never find on LinkedIn today. And to begin this journey, we have to travel back to a time when one of the biggest threats to public health came from tiny creatures hiding in the dark. Job number 1. Rat catcher. During the Victorian era in England, rats weren't just annoying pests. They were walking disasters, carriers of deadly disease. Rat catchers emerged as a kind of emergency task force for filthy, overcrowded neighborhoods. Every single day, they had to deal directly with animals carrying lethal infections. The most famous of them all was a man named Jack Black, known as the greatest rat catcher of his time. This job demanded more than courage. It required elite hunting skills. Just think about it. The safety of an entire city could sometimes depend on people who spent their days crawling through sewers chasing rats in the dark. Job number 2. The whipping boy. If you think being a punching bag is exhausting, imagine literally becoming the person punished for someone else's mistakes. In the royal and noble families of old Europe, there was a position that sounded painful just by name alone: the whipping boy. Back then, strict rules forbade teachers from laying a hand on princes or princesses, so instead they hired another child around the same age to grow up beside them as a companion. And whenever the prince misbehaved, that unfortunate child would take the punishment instead. But strangely enough, life sometimes balanced things out. Many of these children became incredibly close friends with the royals they grew up beside. Some were even rewarded later in life. One famous example was the childhood friend of King Charles I, who was eventually granted the title of Earl in 1643 after years of taking the hits. Job number 3, the reader. Before podcasts, before audiobooks, factory workers had to endure mind-numbing repetition every single day. To keep morale from collapsing, factory owners came up with an unusual idea: hire a professional reader. Their job was simple: sit on a raised platform and loudly read newspapers, stories, and daily news updates to the workers throughout the entire shift. This was basically the world's first version of audio entertainment, and it made those endless hours of labor far more bearable. Job number 4, human computers. The word computer that we use every day was originally the name of a profession. Before electronic circuits existed, computers were actual human beings, mostly women. Their job was to perform thousands of complex calculations completely by hand. The accuracy of bridges, buildings, and even major expeditions often depended on these silent human machines working tirelessly behind the scenes. Job number 5. The food taster. The greater the power, the greater the fear. For kings and nobles, even the most luxurious feast could become their final meal if poison was involved. So to protect themselves, they hired food tasters. These people had one job: eat everything first before their master touched a single bite. Every meal they tasted was a gamble with death. If they were still alive a few minutes later, only then was the food considered safe. A job that guaranteed a full stomach, but came with constant terror. Job number 6, the hot water servant. Inside the freezing stone castles of the Middle Ages, warmth was considered a luxury. Hot water servants were workers responsible for supplying warm water to the nobility, and their duties went far beyond bringing drinking water. Their main responsibility was preparing bath water, washing water, and even drying clothes for kings and nobles. During brutal winters, keeping water constantly heated and ready at the exact right moment required incredible physical endurance. Job number 7, the dog whipper. Have you ever seen a stray dog wander into the middle of a formal ceremony? Today, that would be incredibly rare. But centuries ago, inside churches, it happened all the time. That's why the job of dog whipper existed. Their duty was to patrol the church and chase away stray dogs during religious services, making sure they didn't create chaos or ruin the sacred atmosphere. It may sound strange today, but back then, this was considered an important role for keeping ceremonies peaceful and uninterrupted. Job number 8. The ice cutter. Before refrigerators existed, how did people keep food fresh during the brutal summer heat? The answer was the ice cutter. Every winter, when lakes froze solid, these workers would use enormous handsaws to cut massive blocks of straight from the frozen surface. It was exhausting work and incredibly dangerous. They had to stand on thin ice in freezing temperatures for hours at a time, harvesting and storing an entire year's supply of cold. Job number 9. The knocker-up. And finally, meet the living version of your phone's snooze button, the knocker-up. Before alarm clocks became common, workers actually hired people to wake them up in the morning. Knocker-ups would walk through neighborhoods before sunrise, using long sticks to tap on windows or front doors until they were absolutely sure their clients were awake. They were the people who kept industrial cities running on time, through rain, through snow, through freezing cold mornings. Looking back at all 9 of these jobs, one strange thing becomes clear. What feels exhausting, dangerous, or even absurd to us today was once completely normal life for our ancestors. Society evolved, technology took over, and these professions slowly disappeared into the fog of history, making room for entirely new ways of living. But the determination of the ice cutters working through brutal winters, or the patience of those human computers performing endless calculations by hand, still reminds us of something powerful. Human beings will always adapt in order to survive. So if you had to travel back in time and choose one of these 9 jobs, which one do you think you'd survive the longest doing? Share your answer down in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue exploring more hidden corners of history and science together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.